Hey everybody, and welcome to a Let's Play of the second half of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Demo. This is going to be post-commentary, and I have edited this down. I played for over 4 hours in this demo. It is a huge, huge demo. And I kind of just like picked all the best of things and just to talk about what's going on. I'm going to shut up for this intro cutscene.
Just them?
Guess so.
Oh my god. He ain't coming back.
He ain't going to be in Final Fantasy VIII.
That city they're headed to, is that...
Junon. Shinra territory. Come on.
So like I was saying, this demo is massive. I've tried to cut out as much menuing as I can, so you may see some just quick fades or cuts when that happens. And I've tried to cut out some backtracking that I do later on. The one thing I will point out is how huge this map is. It is absolutely massive, and having played the game already, because I have played it a little bit after, because this is post-commentary, that is the actual size of the world, and that might even just be the Junon area. I don't know. I haven't gotten here in the actual game. So, just to mention something about this, because it is post-commentary, I played, like I said, for 4 hours. I did want to cut out a lot. And the main reason why I did this is because I was like, oh, I really want to get the Junon demo on my channel. But I also need to, or really wanted to, install the regular game. Also, red on the chocobo will forever be hilarious. So I was like, I kind of need to play this really quickly, record it, and then uninstall, because this thing takes 40 gigabytes. So something new that they've introduced, and I really, really love this crafting system. I was very happy with it. Oh, apparently I don't open the menu to look at it. We'll talk about it when I open that, I guess.
Agreed. Let's focus on where we can go.
I didn't realize that you could sprint on the chocobo just yet. I wanted to like take my time. I do appreciate that on chocobo, you can pick up all the items at once. And it helps when you're trying to make these. So the transmutation system is the crafting system. And basically you pick up different things along the way as you go, and you can transmute them into items. A couple of things happen when you transmute. One, you get an item from doing it. So, you know, all those little extra items you get are not useless. They are actually very nice. The other things that happen is that once you transmute it once, it becomes cheaper to transmute it again. So if you really want to make a whole bunch of potions, the first time you do it, it's a little bit more expensive, and then it's really easy. Something really interesting is that you can do accessories in the demo, and that actually gets expanded further into armor in the actual game, so you can make your own armor and accessories, which is awesome, because in the original game, and pretty much any Final Fantasy that you get accessory items, I'm always like, I don't really know which one I want to put on, but also I don't end up buying them. I find it much more natural to just find them out in the wild. So in being able to make them, I feel a little bit better about having different types of accessories. And like, for instance, the status negating accessories, that'll be really, really nice to be able to just make those now. These are the cutest little baby chocobo things. And it takes me a while to figure out what the heck they want me to do here. But there is a sign that is down. So, if you don't hold it, by the way, Cloud just sort of gives up. Just slams it back down. But if you press and hold it, he will pick this up, and it will become a fast travel point. So anytime you see these little baby chocobo, that's what happens. You create this little thing, and he gets so happy. And they are the cutest things ever. I love them. there's a dedicated pet button, which is just amazing. Now, something interesting is that these chocobo have like a plant butt thing going on. Not entirely sure what that's about because chocobo aren't plants. Yeah, I don't entirely know what it is, but it's very cute. There's a broken bench, and then you can use the bench over here to rest at, just like you could in the first game. There's something a little bit different about that, and we'll talk about it when I actually do it, because I'm like, oh, I'm not hurt, I don't need to. I do spend a little bit of time just exploring, and in a second, I think I even just get off of the chocobo, because I'm like, well, I don't want to miss anything, and trying to figure out the movement, because it is very, very fluid. There's also really, really good motion. Here I am. I'm trying to figure out, like, oh, can you climb up on top of everything? And that's not true. You can't climb on everything. Even though Aerith is somehow able to get on top of the building, which is why I spend so much time here being like, wait, can you? You can't climb onto everything, but there is a good amount of environmental interaction in terms of moving around. And anytime you press the circle button and you have a terrain action pop up in the bottom left, you can actually either jump up onto something or jump down, which is really nice because you don't necessarily need to traverse like along a path anymore. You can actually get around a little differently. I'm now realizing that I probably could have swam here because there is swimming in the game. That's okay. There was only a little bit of items, I'm guessing, on the island that I missed. Not a huge deal, and that's probably the one thing that I don't show off in this demo is swimming, because I just don't get to the point that I can do it. But that's fine. It's not a big deal. There's not too much to talk about during the transversal parts. I probably should have cut this out, but I wanted to leave in as much as possible because it is an enormous demo. And the actual game is like 4 or 5 times this in these areas. It is incredibly big.
Alert! Alert! Dangerous fiend detected in your vicinity. Please ensure you are prepared before engaging. My sensors are picking up some understandable confusion. It's a pleasure to meet you, Cloud. I am your personal monster assessment instrument. But since that's a mouthful, you can call me Mai. Chadley programmed me to assist you by providing detailed analyses of the fiends you encounter. I hope I can be of service to you in the many battles ahead. With that out of the way, I'm picking up unusual fiend activity nearby. To procure the biological data that we require, you'll need to complete specific objectives during combat. But don't worry, because I'll be here to help you succeed. Good luck.
So Chadley made himself an AI girlfriend. Really weird. She does talk to you, and I was a little worried at first because her dialogue was actually coming through my controller at first, and I was so concerned that I was like, oh, I don't know if it'll actually record this. So in terms of her helping you during combat, she really doesn't. She does just talk at you and will give you interesting tidbits of information about the enemy that you're fighting, but doesn't really offer any strategic advice. I'm reading through the synergy skills here, which are interesting. And basically, whenever you're guarding, you can press a button to activate a synergy skill, and those are slightly more powerful regular attacks. It's kind of weird because you can just pretty much spam them. There's no downside to doing them. Some of them are charge attacks, some of them are quick activates. They're all a little bit different. So here we go. We're going to assess the Silver Chimera. They're pressured after using Aquatic Beam, weak against fire. I am curious about something because I didn't watch this back. We have 3 objectives during this fight. And one is to stagger the enemy, one is to exploit their elemental weakness, and one is to defeat them within a certain time limit. So seeing that... Oh, there's the Spellblade, which is really good, and I should probably use that more in my actual game. I get knocked out real easy there because I was like, oh my god. They are stronger than you think, and maybe it's just me being like, oh, I'm dumb and I'm getting used to it again. I promise that the game is actually better than it seems. I'm so slow with this, and I'm realizing like, oh man, I got much more comfortable with this. Stardust Ray is amazing. I back up a little bit, and I'm like, okay, let's fight. And then I am immediately switch to Aerith because I'm like, oh, I need to raise myself up. Something interesting is that you do not get the life materia in this demo, meaning that you have to rely on Phoenix Downs if you get knocked out. And that becomes a point that's kind of interesting with a later fight in this, because while there's no hard mode here, there is one fight that hard mode can be activated for, and hard mode, of course, removes the ability to use items. Alright, so now that I've gotten myself all figured out a little bit better, and getting more used to the combat, we go into it. So in fighting these enemies, I start just using the different abilities because I want to know how much damage they do, what they're doing. Red really confuses me a little bit, and I kind of wish that I had gone to Chadley first. Chadley is in this demo because it lets you play as the characters and get an idea of what their special abilities are. The text pop-ups don't do a great job of telling you what's going on. I stagger this enemy, which is really easy and good. Staggered both of them. I guess I had just done enough damage because I didn't. Oh, right. If you do damage after their Aqua Beam, it pretty much does what you need to do. And then I'm like, okay, I need to exploit their weaknesses. However, their weakness is fire. And I'm like, okay, well, who has fire? And then I look through it, and I have Firebolt Blade. I'm curious of something, because I think that technically should count. That's why. Okay, so Firebolt Blade would have counted, but it does the electric part first. It is an electric attack first and then a fire attack, and I kill it with the electric attack, meaning I did not exploit the weakness. Thankfully, you can retry these. There's no penalty for failing them. You just do it again. And I take a second to look through what everybody has, who has the fire materia, and I'm like, oh, Cloud has it. That was dumb. I should have just used that. To be fair, I thought that the Firebolt Blade would, because the description says it does an electric and fire-based attack. It doesn't say that it's two separate attacks, which is, I think, a little bit of an oversight. So when you hit retry, you get pushed back a little bit, and then you can go into the fight again. Some things to remember about the retry, because I did not realize it at first. If you hit retry, it does keep your progress. I didn't realize that I did not need to assess it already. I had already assessed it. I thought it was like totally restarting. And you already have your extra objectives completed, so you don't need to worry about those. The other thing is that your health and MP does not recharge, and I was really expecting that because of how the first game worked, and I was not ready for it coming back in. Interestingly, you do not need to... There we go, I got the exploit the weakness. You do not need to complete the other objectives when you retry. If you only have one objective that you need to complete, that's the only one you need to do. So, if you defeat them in the time limit the first time, you don't need to worry about time any other time that you try it. And in fact, you could see the timer does not exist in this retry. When we're going for retries of the other fiends in this area, and trust me, I need to do the retry a couple times for some of them, I cut to when I actually do the specific things. I don't show the entire fight, so don't worry about that. I try to cut out as much as possible while still trying to show the entirety of the demo here. And it still ends up being over 2 hours long. This is a long episode. Feel free to skip it. Don't watch the whole thing if you're like, this is mostly just here for my archival and posterity, and wanting to be like, oh, this is different between the demo. Go look at episode 4 if you want to see that. Which is also why it's an over 2 hour long episode, because I do not expect most people to watch this demo. But I don't know. Maybe they will. Also, the synergy abilities are amazing. So there are two types of synergy abilities. There are synergy abilities that you do while guarding. So you hold down R1 and you press it. There are others that are activatable. So basically there's like a secondary ATB tab somewhere in the background. The more that you do your synergy abilities, the more that you do your like R1 synergy abilities, the quicker the ATB ones become available. And once those are available, you can activate really, really powerful attacks. Something interesting that I guess I shouldn't talk too much about the actual game, but I guess because I can talk about the differences already. Something interesting is that when you activate those synergy abilities, the actual ATB versions, they increase your relationship with your character. And that's kind of a weird point of contention I have, because I don't enjoy the fact that a gameplay element in combat affects an outside like RPG role-playing element, but I can gripe about that later. And I don't know how much it actually affects it. I just seen that the relationship can go up. I don't know if it goes up by a whole lot or if it's anything else. And all it really affects is a date. It is interesting that there's like a huge construction area, and 100% in the actual game, I fully believe that you can go in there. Like I said, I haven't gotten here yet, but I think so. Also, because I just noticed on the compass, it said fortress. So I think Fort Condor is in that direction. If you go down the construction area, I believe that's probably going to get you to Fort Condor. And that's kind of cool, and I'm very curious how they handle that, because in the first game, you had the Fort Condor minigame. As far as I know, that does not exist, or rather, not in the first game, but in Intergrade, they had a Fort Condor minigame. And I don't see that existing yet in my regular playthrough, but I am curious if they bring back a version of that, or if it's a little bit more like adult, and it's like, no, this is a serious like thing that's going on. Which I hope they do. Or they might even keep it for the third game, because there is a major event that happens at Fort Condor in the original game, and it doesn't happen until like the later half of Disc 2. So, yeah. All right, so these rest stops, when you're using them, you have to use a cushion. Now, I understand why they did this. It's basically taking place of the tent of the original game, the item, the tent, which was a consumable item that you used when you wanted to rest up, and it would heal HP and MP. My headcanon here is that Cloud is like leaving these cushions behind. Like everybody else in the party has like their little bedroll or cushion that they use when they need to take a rest, and Cloud just keeps losing his. Like he's like leaves it behind completely. And so he has to keep replacing his cushion. Of course, can't leave without petting it. They're very cute. Very, very cute. I do like how Red is like looking, and he's like, there's a little bit of jealousy in his eyes, and when he sees the pet, he's like, oh, that looks good. But no, as far as I know, you don't pet Red. At first I think like, oh, can we jump down in the hole? And no, not really. In terms of the Junon area, it's interesting that they chose this to be the demo. It's not a bad thing. Oh, yeah. I don't think I ever noticed that was a chocobo wall type thing. Oh, no, I did. Okay, good. I try to go up it, but I don't think this is part of the demo, so it doesn't let you. Also, what's interesting is that you have black chocobo that you are riding. And I wonder if that's just the chocobo of the region, because it seems like there are different chocobo for each region. They don't really explain that in this game, but in the demo, but it is explained later. Here we have some orcs, which fairly normal enemy type. I don't remember these from the original game. They are the only enemy design that I do not remember from the original game in terms of like all the things that we come across. But just because I don't remember it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just might be in a different area. Because I don't remember orcs in the Junon area whatsoever. But like maybe they're used somewhere else in the game and were underutilized in the original. They do show up a whole lot as I'm playing through the regular game. And they are like one of the most common enemies. In fact, when you go through Chadley's like tutorial stuff. They are the enemies used for the tutorial. So I'm not 100% sure where they came from. It's kind of interesting. Just some items over here and a treasure chest. Our first treasure chest of the demo. A Whistlewind scarf is inside of it. I don't think I check it out until a little bit later. There are some boxes. And of course, we see the return of the Moogle medals. I was happy to see that. It's kind of a cool trading thing that I'm glad exists. Precision defense, focus materials in there. More Moogle medals. Which it seems like the Moogle medals are actually still randomized drops. It doesn't seem like they are strict placements or anything like that. So same thing as the last game. And you can actually see we've covered quite a lot of area of the demo. That's about like half of the area of the demo, I want to say, which is fairly empty, and the rest of it's fairly densely packed. Because as we move forward, you can see a whole lot more that's together. And we find another little guy, and I'm like, wait, where are you going, little guy? Where's your stop? Oh my god, getting this item. I'm a little too like transfixed on trying to get these items at first, I think. And then I'm like, well, okay, let me go back over here. There's another new enemy that we haven't seen, because there's orcs, but there's also a grasslands wolf. Now, I do remember the grasslands wolf. Not supposed to be in the Junon area. It does appear in the regular game in the grasslands, which is the first area of the game. I am curious to see if there are different normal enemy types in the Junon area. So far, it seems like they're kind of... well, I don't know, but like, there's only one enemy in this area of the game that I remember being from Junon other than the fiends. We'll strike that too, actually. I will point them out when we get to them. And the others, I'm just like, no, you're an enemy from the game, but you're not supposed to be here. Like the Grasslands Wolf, for instance. Not supposed to be in the Junon area. And the orcs, like I said, I don't actually know where they came from. I don't remember them in the original game. Maybe somebody can comment and tell me where they came from. Who knows? I just noticed that the game does let you know when you have enough stuff. So we transmute our Phoenix down. Our craftsmanship increased. And what that lets us do is we now have access to more items. So the first time you craft an item, you get XP, and that goes towards raising your craftsmanship level. Once your craftsmanship level is at a higher level, you can create new things like the accessories and accessory upgrades, which is one of the best things I've ever seen. The fact that you can upgrade your equipment via the crafting menu means that your items that you're using, like, you don't have to go out and buy a whole new slew of items. You can just actually grind for a little bit, which you're probably going to want to grind levels anyway, and then get your new equipment just through like exploring and discovering an area. So it feels a little bit more natural and a little less reliant on, oh, I went to a new area, I need to go find the merchant and get new stuff, which is like the traditional sort of thing for RPGs. You get to a new area, buy stuff. Also, I didn't realize until looking at this right now, or rather right then and there, I was like, oh, I actually have enough stuff to make one of the accessories. So I do that. And then I didn't realize that I was ready to make the other accessory as well. I could have gone into the menu and made the other one, but I'll do that. I do that later. I believe I craft every item except for 2, because the other 2 just need parts from like enemies that you kill, and I would have had to just grind enemies, and I didn't want to do that after a certain point. Like I said, I played this demo for 4 hours and cut it down to like 2 hours, 15 minutes for you guys to see. So I've cut out basically half of the playtime that I had. Now, granted, a lot of that was retrying things, but you know. Well, we can make a cushion. I love that you can make cushions. I also fully believe that it's like, oh, Cloud has to remake his own cushions because he loses them constantly. Like the rest of the party's like, no, we're not buying this. You're the one who messed up. You get a whole bunch of stuff that you can transmute at Craftsmanship 3 in this demo, so I go through and I add them to the to-do list, because if they're on your to-do list, they actually show up as the game will let you know that you can craft them. The other interesting thing is that the accessory upgrades, you can actually craft them while they're equipped on your character. So like for the high or power wrist guards are initially equipped to Cloud, and you can upgrade them while he has them equipped, so you don't actually have to go through the menu and then like, oh, okay, I upgraded it, well now I need to go equip them. It's nice little quality of life upgrades that are all over this game compared to the first one, and I really, really enjoyed that. It just makes it a lot easier to go through and continue playing because of how huge this game is. Any quality of life improvement is really useful. Now, what's interesting is she says another Chocobo Ranch. It's that is very interesting to me because it means that like there might be more to do at this Chocobo Ranch in the full game, because we don't really see the owner here, and I'm guessing that they would be, you know, over by this house or something like that. It is a much smaller ranch though. Love the music. It's very reminiscent of the Firefly soundtrack, actually, listening back to it again. And of course, every ranch has a vending machine. The vending machines return, but they're much fewer. I've noticed, like they're not like around every corner or anything like that, and they're not next to most rest areas. They're really pushing the crafting system over just buying items, and I actually appreciate that because it means that like your gil gets used for things that seem a little bit more important, like buying these sale items, for instance, and buying weapons, for instance, that you may have missed. They do make it a point to mention that every weapon in the game is in treasure chests, but if you miss them in an area, then you can buy them from the merchants. So that's kind of nice. If you're like, oh, wow, I missed like one chest in the last area, I don't necessarily want to go all the way back, you can just buy it. And that's kind of nice. It's also interesting that at every vending machine and shop, it actually shows you the it will tag items that you need to create others. Like, for instance, the high potion, you need a potion to create it. And the upgrades for the accessories, you need the initial accessory in order to create them. So it is kind of nice that, like, at a vending machine, it shows you, oh, by the way, you technically need this as an ingredient for one of your things. So if you want to buy it, go ahead. That's kind of a nice thing. We, of course, find Chadley over here.
Junon's Chocobo Ranch. Perhaps you were already aware, but the Chocobos here are raised on a diet of feed, seaweed, and fishbone meal. Unsurprising, given the local industry.
I did not know that. I didn't really need to know it. Chadley has materia that he could develop, and this is by far one of the best things I've ever seen. There are fire and ice and lightning and wind materia in this game, which is sorely needed. They have gone through great leaps and bounds to make this better of an experience, and I think they learned from Intergrade, because in Intergrade, Yuffie can change her element for her ninjutsu attacks, and I think it was such a popular thing that they realized, oh, we need to give all of the characters the abilities to use all of the elements, because it's a major part of the combat system to exploit elemental weaknesses. And when your character is not equipped to exploit the weakness, it just kind of makes you feel like, oh, well, cool, I didn't know what was coming. You know, you have to read minds in the first game in order to do it correctly. And they fix that. You don't need to read minds. Every character can actually learn in the base game a elemental attack ability without having materia equipped. And they just permanently have it. Now, honestly, it will take a little bit of time and leveling, but it is astoundingly better to be able to do that. And the fire and ice and lightning and wind materia let you have those stronger Ra and Ga attacks without needing to equip two materia, which is really nice. This is so cool, being able to customize your Chocobo and what they're wearing. I'm guessing every ranch will have these. I have gotten all the stuff from the first ranch in my playthrough, and I'm hoping that there are more and more of these. And it gives you more of an incentive to go do all those rest areas, because not only do they become fast travel points, but you can exchange the golden plumes you get from restoring a rest area for these cosmetic options, which is really nice.
Gabe starts pulling his weight soon.
She mentions Gabe, but Gabe doesn't exist in this game, so I'm wondering where these characters are, and I'm guessing it's only in the full game. So yeah, you can replace their like armor that they're wearing. I do think that this one is a little bit bulky. The fact that they have preset colors is kind of cool, and you can create your own color set. Like, it's just straight up, if you have colors that you like and you want to use, every single piece of armor can have a unique color set that you define. And it's not just from a preset list of colors, it is a full like hue color wheel thing that lets you do it. You choose the lightness, the saturation, and the hue, and you get like any shade of any color that you want, which is crazy good. So moving on, we head up to one of the fiends that's right next to the Chocobo farm. Now, I'm just going to apologize because my first time fighting this is atrocious, and I know it is. It takes me a while to get used to the combat, and I think a lot of people found that the combat in this demo was a little bit harder than they were expecting. To be fair, it just kind of throws you into a level 20 plus area, and it's kind of like, well, you should know how to play the game now. Because this is like the third-ish area. There's like one large open area, there's a dungeon, and then this would be the second large open area of the game. Also, I'm sorry if I'm talking over Mai. But she just kind of rambles, and like, frankly, I didn't pay attention to her while I was fighting anyway. So this enemy confused me a lot because it mentions, oh, you need to dodge an attack in order to pressure it, and that is one of the things. That intel takes me quite a while to get. So I'm like, oh, I'll hit it with a attack, and I hit it with Arrowa, and if I had dodged that attack, I actually would have gotten the pressure. You basically need to dodge a specific attack. The game does not make it like particularly knowledgeable that, yeah, it will retaliate with a violent attack, but it doesn't actually let you know what that specific attack is. It is not dodging any of its attacks, and frankly, some of its attacks are violent anyway. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, everything it does hurts quite a bit. And so this whole first fight, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just going to dodge it. I'm going to dodge it. I'm trying to get its attention. It also keeps going after my AI teammates, which is really strange compared to the first game, because in the first game, the enemies really didn't do that. They went after the party leader. Now sometimes the enemies just get latched onto one particular character. Like this one just kept attacking Aerith, and it's really hard to dodge with Aerith.
Heal up while you can.
Here I am like running away trying to be like, okay, I'll get some distance and then I will dodge one of its attacks. It doesn't really work all too well. Because again, I kept thinking like, oh, I'll just dodge any of its attacks and then I'll help pressure it, but that is not how that works. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe I just gotta hit it more. And get its attention by doing a couple attacks. And then I did get its attention. And then I was like, well, okay, come at me so I could dodge. And frankly, some of the things are really hard to dodge from this because, like, the swoop attack is really fast. That one I dodged, and I was like, okay, well, why didn't I get credit for that? I'm just, like, trying to dodge, and I keep failing. And then when Cloud goes down, I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to kill this thing now. I don't think I get the time thing on this first try either. Because I'm just trying to figure out how to get it to do its big attack. See, even that wasn't its big attack. Whirlwind was not its thing to like watch out for. Oh my god, I never realized that like every comet missed.
Let the winds caress you.
Healing wind goes off, get some health back.
You
And then I'm just like, all right, well, I don't know what I'm doing here. This first fight is very fumbling. And I do think that it's the game's fault for saying that to pressure it, you need to dodge the violent attack, but like not really defining what the violent attack is. It isn't until this point that I'm like, oh, it's got to be a specific attack that they're talking about. And with how low my health is getting here, eventually I just decide to go, all right, well... Oh no, I'm still trying here. I'm still trying to dodge its attacks and still going like, I don't know what attack they want from me. And then I stagger it, and at that point I'm like, well, alright, I'm just going to kill it then. I'm realizing I should have activated Vengeance mode. Look at how high the bar is with Red. But again, I hadn't gone through the tutorial that would teach me about Vengeance mode and how powerful it is either. Oh, there it is. I finally activated it. Siphon Fang is great, but Red gets a little defeated there. I'm looking through. I'm like, what do we have? What could I possibly do? And then I see Divine Punishment, and I'm like, what is that? It's interesting. If you have characters on the back line and your other two characters fall in battle, you can actually use synergy abilities with your backline team. It's kind of fascinating. So in that one, I only got stagger an enemy. It does take me a few tries to get this one. I do go like, oh my god, I have my teammates at 1 HP, so I'm like, I need to go heal. I do a brief look around the area, and then I decide, oh, I'm just going to go back to the Chocobo Ranch. And actually, I think I was like, oh, where can I rest at the Chocobo Ranch? And there is no rest area here. Maybe there is in the full game, but it doesn't seem like it in this. And frankly, the Chocobo rest areas in the demo are really close together compared to how far apart they are in the main game, which is kind of an interesting thing to see. Like they are significantly closer than they ever would be. I lose sight of the Chocobo because it kind of just like stops going forward, but then I find the thing on my own and everything's good. Now in the demo, there are 3 rest areas and of course 3 rewards that you can get. So finding all 3 rest areas gives you enough plumes to get the Chocobo customizations. Now you can always use the desk or the bench. You don't need to lift this thing up, but if you do lift this thing up, then it becomes a fast travel point, and that kind of makes it easier. Also, it's always nice to see the little guys really happy and then just hang out here. It's kind of a lonely existence, I guess. That's a little sad. But oh, also, yeah, they just sort of flop over and take a nap with you when you're resting, and then they wake up when you're leaving and they're all like sleepy, and then they're so cute. They're the cutest things I've ever seen. So we're going to go back to the Fiend and retry it a couple times. Thankfully, that rest area is very close to where the Fiend actually is, so we don't have to go far in order to beat it. Now, they are next to these towers, and in the demo, they don't explain what these towers are, but they are a thing that essentially you need to interact with in the main game in order to get some intel. It's basically a side quest. Or this is like the Assassin's viewpoints in Assassin's Creed and like the tall necks and Horizon. It's the same sort of idea with the open world game. It is a place that you get up onto and then it'll fill out your map with extra things. So the second time I fought this thing, I got the time limit. I did not pressure it. I didn't get the thing, but I just didn't want to be pressured by the time limit to do the dodge. So then the third time around, I finally get the dodge. So I hit it with a hard hit. It responds with its very, very powerful attack. And as long as you dodge out of the way of that powerful attack, you get the pressure an enemy thing completed. Obviously, Cloud went down at the very, very end there because he has 1 HP. But, you know, as long as you make it out alive, you're totally fine. Also, I think the entire time I was like, God, why is Aerith not healing me? Because I had picked up the autocast materia from Chadley. It isn't until later that I realized, oh, I never equipped Aerith with the autocast materia. And that was dumb of me. I was the dumb one. So we got some more stuff so we can transmute things. I instantly transmute the high power wrist guards for Cloud because it increases his stats. And that's always better. Craftsmanship goes up, and it only goes up to 4 in the demo. I imagine that it's much, much higher in the actual game because already in the real game, it seems like I can craft way more things. And I'm just still in the starting area. So, yeah. The items transmuter goes up to 4 in this. And that's why I was like, oh, I don't really need to transmute every single item because it's not like there's a hidden item for transmuting everything in the demo. That would have been cool, but not how that works. I got enough for an elixir too. Do I do it? Yeah, I do. The fact that you can transmute really powerful stuff like elixirs is also kind of interesting. Because normally those items are only items that you can find on the ground, but it seems like they're focusing way less on items that you pick up from chests and things like that, and much more on, oh, if you want certain things, you're going to have to craft them. Which, again, I don't dislike, because their crafting system is very passive. You don't need to actively look for many items. Now, obviously, there are some items which are going to be harder to find, which will be necessary for some of the better crafting stuff. And I guess at that point, it could probably get a little grindy, but, I mean, it doesn't seem bad so far in me playing the regular game. And it actually makes you want to go around and grab all these random things that are on the ground. It also does raise my appreciation considerably for just knocking things over. It does raise my appreciation considerably for the chocobos, because you can pick up like multiple items that are close together at once. You don't have to run around and mash triangle, because Cloud himself will only pick up like one item at a time. So we'll get this checkpoint, raise it up. That is the final checkpoint in the demo, so I will get the chocobo things soon. I think I give this one a pet, so now I have pet every single one of the little guys. I wonder if there's an achievement for that, just petting all of the little chocobo. Probably not, but that would be interesting. And then we take a little rest here, use a cushion. Which again, Cloud is just going to somehow lose because he's terrible at keeping track of his cushions, I guess. That would infuriate me, by the way. Like, it really would. We get a little cheering, and then I realize, oh, the PlayStation can only record for an hour at a time. So there are a couple of times where I just sort of stop and you'll see a cut, and that's because, like, oh, I got a phone call, or I needed to restart the recording. I really love the PS5's recording systems, but they're not perfect. The fact that it's limited to an hour is a little annoying. I sort of get why they do it. I don't know. Maybe I don't. Anyway, the Fleet Wings. This is one of the enemies that actually is in the Junon area. They are much easier in this demo than they were in the original game. I remember having a lot of trouble with Fleet Wings because those blue impulse attacks that they do in the original game hit your entire party and do a ton of damage for that level. So they're quite dangerous. But they're a lot easier to work around in this. One thing I do notice as I'm looking through this is that the gil that you get, you really don't spend it on anything unless you're going to be low on items. And I imagine that gil is going to be even less important in hard mode because you can't use these items anyway. So that's kind of interesting. Although, well, I guess you can use gil to buy materials at certain shops. So gil does not become useless if you're looking for specific equipment that you need for the game, so that's kind of nice. Anyway, on to the next fiend right up here. I do take a little bit of time to look around and see, like, oh, there's like a construction site and there's stuff all over the place, which is kind of, you know, just par for the course.
Rare Alpha Dunk variant identified.
Alpha Dunks. I remember Alpha Dunks from the original game. They are cute, actually. They're like little
Rare Alpha Dunk variant
elephant things that shoot water bubbles out of their trunks. Like I said, cute. So the Alpha Dunks up here aren't particularly dangerous, though I do realize after starting the fight with them, after the first fight with these Alpha Dunks,
Commencing guidance protocol. The docile distribution of the Alpha Dunk led to its widespread adoption as a beast of burden. Applications included agriculture, transportation, and even warfare. Variants like these, however, were valued as a source of hides and tusks used for
arts and crafts. I do appreciate her little tidbits of information. So after this fight is where I realized, oh, I don't have autocast cure, because I was like, oh, why am I taking so much damage? I thought Aerith is supposed to be healing me. So that's one of the things that I realized almost immediately. These guys are weak to fire and ice. They do something interesting in that if you hit them with fire or ice, they do get pressured, but they also like go into a rage mode type thing. So the game does want you to pressure the enemy, and in doing so will in fact activate their Seeing Red ability. Yep, there it is. So they go into like a berserk mode and they do some extra damage and focus on trampling you. I think that actually kind of makes them a little easier to beat because of Cloud's punishing mode. It seems a little bit easier to guard against them. Their longer range, like water balloon attacks, that they can do with their trunks, are actually a little bit harder to deal with, in my opinion. So just something interesting. So we got the pressure and stagger. The time limit for these guys is the hard one because of how much HP they have. You really have to just go all out on them. Really, really do a lot of damage in order to get these guys down. And the more that you can guard and stop their tramples like that, the easier it becomes to pressure them. I do make a mistake in summoning Rama here,
Duty calls.
because while the timer doesn't go down while you're summoning him, I feel like there's a little bit of lost seconds as you're like transitioning in and out of the animation and just like reorienting yourself. I guess he does do more damage, but I spend too much ATB from Rama, and it doesn't really do a ton of damage because he's lightning and they are weak against fire and ice. But that's a me problem. So I killed one and I'm like, okay, yeah, I got this. And then I look at the other and I'm like, oh, you have like all of your HP. And while it's pressured, bringing up its stagger gauge is tough. Rama does not help a ton with the stagger gauge. He's more of a damage doer.
I'll do what I can.
I move in Aerith to do Sorcerer's Storm, which maybe is a dumb idea. I don't know. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I could kill him if I use Cross Slash in time, but I don't think Cross Slash even activates in time to do it.
We've got to get through this.
Yeah, all these attacks that I queue up, they just don't quite hit in time.
Over for a bit.
And that's unfortunate, but it's almost down and we kill it in just a second. There is quite a lot of the game that is like, what's the word? There's quite a lot of importance put on perfect guards and like hitting back an enemy. In fact, there's one in the actual game that is quite difficult to do that with and has been a source of a grudge of mine a little bit. But I'll talk about that when I do an actual Let's Play. So we didn't get it in the time limit. Something interesting that I learned from that, though, is that your summon ability will activate if you go down.
Did that battle prove a fitting test of your prowess? Your dissatisfied expression says it all.
Oh yes, I noticed that as well.
You aren't equipped with that functionality. Anyway, with the data from your latest bout, I created a new virtual combat trial. It will prove a real test.
And there we go. We've technically completed 3 of them. I cut ahead a little bit to me making one of the abilities, one of the items through crafting, and then I also go over and talk to the security guards, which in the first game had a little bit of funny dialogue, but they have nothing here. And then I cut to me getting them beaten in time, which is really just go at them really hard. Everything you've got, try to stagger them as quickly as possible. Do not shy away from using the elemental stuff. At first, like, my first thoughts in the first couple of retries I did was like, oh, maybe I'll hold off on using any fire and ice so that they don't do the seeing red, and maybe that'll be a little easier, but it's honestly better to tempt the fate, hit them with fire and ice, and get their stagger gauge as high as you possibly can, because when they're pressured, it will build up a lot easier. Barrett just running through the barrels here and causing the most chaos ever. I'm so glad I kept that in. I thought about it in doing this commentary because I did the edit first and I'm watching it back, and I was like, did I leave in that moment where Barrett just like just barrages through a bunch of barrels? I'm so glad I did. So over here, there's a bunch of just chocobo hanging out. I'm guessing that this is going to be the area that you do a little mini game to catch chocobo over in this place. So that's kind of fun. There's not really anything else over here. There are some bunnies around. I do attack the bunnies to try and see if you can kill them. You cannot kill any wildlife. Cloud is, I guess, against that. There is a beautiful shot of Junon, the other coast, and the water. It does look amazing. There is something like in the water over there, which I don't really know what it is. And the high wind is up on top of Junon, which is phenomenal to see. That's really cool. And unfortunately, there's nothing really else over by these rocks. Just pretty landscapes. It is a gorgeous game. And I will say, like, running it on graphics mode, it still runs at 60 FPS for pretty much everything that I've seen so far. I don't know what putting it into performance mode actually does, to be 100% perfectly honest. There seems to be almost no difference between them. It might be very, very subtle. Maybe it's just like lowering like long distance resolution or something like that to save some frames. I don't know. I haven't noticed the difference in playing between them. That's just my untrained eye. I'm sure somebody else can do a comparison and it'll become more obvious. So we go ahead and buy both of the other 2 things for our chocobo because I love outfitting our chocobo. That's really fun. We go equip them right away, of course, because why wouldn't you? There we go. Oh, the scorpion outfit. I love the like red eye it makes for the chocobo. Although weirdly, I guess in actuality that would kind of blind it, so that's probably the worst thing you could possibly do. That's a little strange. Go over, talk to Chadley in a second and get the rest of the materia that he can create, I believe. Make myself a remedy, because why not? I think the only things that I didn't end up getting is the regular bulletproof vest and maybe the ether? I don't remember in the final game. So why am I on this menu so long? I should have cut this out. Anyway, well, I guess I'll just leave that in at this point.
Cloud, have you spotted any rabbits nearby? From what I've observed thus far, the ones in this region have a habit of hoarding trinkets in their burrows. So if you spot a burrow, you may want to dig it up with a chocobo. Who knows what sort of things you might find.
So that is one of the coolest things that he could tell you to do. I do think we go through and I buy most of these right now. Yeah, the fire and ice materia, lightning and wind, and level boost. Level boost is a really cool materia idea as well because it will increase the level of one of your materia so you can use the raw spells immediately.
Wonder where we'll meet next. So many fascinating possibilities.
And then I decide, oh, you can like dig up stuff with your chocobo. Well, I remember seeing some bunnies. And then I'm going to go over here and we're going to see that happen in a second where we do a little bit of digging. I do go around and do the digging things. People kind of sleep on this and they say like there's no reason to do it online, I've found. But there is entirely a reason to do this, at least in the demo. Because as far as I'm aware, this is the only way to get enough rubies and emeralds to get some of the items that to craft some of the items that exist. You need to do the chocobo sniffing in order to do it because I personally I haven't seen them. Maybe they're just rare enough that I haven't been getting them, but it seems like the game gives you exactly enough of these materials to create what you need to. So it's almost necessary. So hold up on the D-pad, you get a little line showing you where the item is, and then you go over to the item, hit down, and you pick it up. You got 4 rubies, and that is enough to actually create the magical earrings. So the rubies and emeralds that you need for those crafts things are only available in this demo, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they seem to be only available from these little rabbit burrows because they tend to take the oh my god, I can't think of it. The gems, the sparkly things. Up here, I run into an enemy that is also originally from the Junon area in the regular game. The Zelmazets, I think it's called. What is this thing called? Zemzelet. Zemzelet? Yeah, Zemzelet. Sorry, I'm looking at it and I'm like, how do you pronounce this thing? And then there's, oh yeah, they're also the Ignilisks, which I can't remember if they're from this area, but I don't think they are. I think they're from the grasslands originally, because they do the heat wave thing. Yeah, heat up their throats and dorsal fins. So yeah, it's a bigger enemy. I did use assess on it. I do remember these are very strange in the original game. They have an ability called like Healing Wind where they will heal themselves and also you, I think. But then also very powerful thunder attacks for that point in the game. They're not that hard to beat, though they will put themselves in the air. I'll be honest, I did not figure out how to get airborne with Cloud. The whole of the demo, I struggled with it, and I still don't quite 100% understand how to get Cloud airborne in the regular game. I think you just have to hold X, and I just haven't been doing that. I could be wrong. But not too hard of an enemy. Easy to kill, not too difficult. Though it is one of the bigger enemies around, the Zemzelet. It is interesting. So the entire demo I went through and I was like, oh, I'll assess everything because it's probably what Chadley wants. But assessing isn't actually how you do the Chadley stuff anymore. You just have to defeat the enemies. Also, by these ruined houses, there is another one of those items that you can dig up. I don't realize at first that when it does the scent thing, if there's a wall in the way, it just won't work. The line just sometimes will not go over walls. But found it. This one's a little less impressive with what it gives you. It does give you 10 planets favor, which now I'm realizing for the main game is a huge thing because I haven't found those items yet. And then a little bit further down the path towards the main objective, I find the last fiend. Their unique version of the Zemzelet, the Windzelet. It's not hard to beat these enemies. They are not particularly difficult. They are just particularly mobile, and they have this healing wind ability. Not only, or soothing breeze rather, not only will it heal themselves, But it is the key to both staggering it, pressuring it, and getting that secondary ability. See, it says prevent enemies from taking flight when using Soothing Breeze. I do not get it. You need to prevent them from taking flight during the entirety of the battle. They cannot ever once get up off the ground. This is a little bit difficult to take care of because there are two of them. But I do find a combination of stuff that does work. I do think I put the entirety of that battle in here, but we'll show off the rest of this first one just to show it. In terms of staggering them, it's not too difficult. You just have to do enough damage to them. They are weak, I believe, to ice. So I do equip the fire and ice materia eventually to help out with that. And I do the dumb thing of like, oh, one's doing Soothing Breeze, and it does push you away quite a bit. It's hard to avoid Soothing Breeze. Really hard to avoid Soothing Breeze because it's such a wide area of effect. But you kind of have to just like push through it if you really want to hurt these enemies. I do a dumb thing and use the Firebolt Blade ability on it. And Firebolt Blade is a little weak against them. They're resistant to that. I do try out the Firework Blade here, which is really cool. That basically takes down one of them for me. The other one, however, doesn't take too long after that. Especially, I get a limit break, and I'm like, whoa. That should probably do a ton of damage, especially because it's currently staggered. Does about half of its HP, and then I go crazy, and I'm like, all right, wait, I want to try and kill it while it's, while it's down. And I do. Stardust Ray does it.
Well, you're always welcome to make another attempt.
So we complete all the world intel in Junon because there's only those 4 enemies for the world intel. There's a lot more in the actual regular game, but I don't complete that last thing just yet.
Nice! You've successfully completed all Junon combat assignments. Oh, is something the matter? Perhaps you're fatigued from your battles? Then allow me to provide a massage.
And how do you plan to do that?
Why, by way of resonance, of course. I can use my gorgeous vocal vibrations. Like so.
Alright, Mai, you've had your fun. Now then, your latest triumph has allowed me to create a new combat trial. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't know what the thing with Maya is. That's kind of weird. It's a little weird. So, I put this in just to show off how I end up doing it. I do change my party makeup a little bit and put Barrett in here so that I have a long-range attacker. You don't necessarily need to do this. I actually think you could probably do it with Tifa pretty easily. But anytime they start gearing up for Soothing Breeze, I immediately get Barrett using Maximum Fury on one of them and have the other 2 party members cast Blizzara on both of these enemies, because a Blizzara and a regular attack will almost always knock them out of Healing Breeze. After they do that, they do have a long cooldown period where they will not use Healing Breeze again. So stagger one of them and go ham on them. And like, just everything you've got. Because you can pretty much kill one of them during the first staggering if you have enough AP built up. Or ATB built up. I did not for that first one. And I was like, oh no, they're using Soothing Breeze again. But as long as you're prepared for Soothing Breeze and you focus on fighting one of them at a time, you can see that you can stagger them and get them off of using Soothing Breeze. So you can see I did Blizzara and then I did Maximum Fury and I knocked it down. Don't worry about killing one of them until you've knocked out, like, focus on knocking them out of Soothing Breeze and don't worry about killing them. If you're super aggressive and kill them, great. But otherwise, take the time and do a Blizzara and make sure Aerith and whoever else has another ice materia have their ATB full and can perform the Blizzard attacks. So killed one of them there, and then you focus on the other one and it becomes a lot easier. Starts doing Soothing Breeze and I'm just like, nah. So Blizzara, and then one hit will knock them out of it and do a ton of damage. So completed that one, and then I went to Chadley.
Ever seen a juvenile chocobo lingering in the vicinity of an old stop? Evidently, these locations still have a particular fragrance that attracts the adolescent birds to them. If you notice a stray chocobo, you may want to have a look around. You'll likely find a stop not too far from it.
So this is basically the rest of this demo are the Chadley fights. I do go through all of them. I probably did not need to, but I did anyway. Most of them are tutorial fights. I probably could have cut out all the combat training, honestly. And frankly, I probably could have cut out the Junon battle intels and region intel as well, because I'm pretty sure those might happen in the real game. Though I'm not entirely sure, because it almost seems like one of the fiends is from a different area. So I don't know. But the Junon battle intels are basically you fight two of the fiends that you have currently defeated at once. And that's kind of an interesting thing. I do go through the combat training, and we start with Cloud. I will talk a little bit about how it seems they have changed things for certain characters and how certain characters stay the same. It does take me forever, apparently, to start up one of these. Come on. When do I actually hit the button? Oh my god. Sometimes watching me back eye infuriate me because I'm like, do something. There we go. Gonna go into Cloud. Come on. Cloud. Yep. There. Yes. Okay. There we go. Holy crap. And again, I probably should have done these beforehand. So this teaches us a couple of things about Cloud. One, we have our basic attacks in operator mode. Press the button after dodging to launch a range attack, or hold the button to unleash an area. Ah, okay, hold the button. That's what it is. And I think I'd try it here. Yeah, there we go. I press and hold, and it does go into the air for a brief second. Cloud is also very, very good at juggling enemies. He just sort of lifts them up, and they get thrown into the air. And then the second one is going to teach us about operator mode, which does a ton of damage. As soon as you switch into operating mode, there's a little bit of timing where it will act as like a block. I have noticed that the counter ability, you can either activate it by being in operating mode and hitting R1, or if you press triangle to switch into operator mode at the right time, it will do the exact same thing as blocking in Punisher mode. So that's kind of an interesting thing. If you get very good at being able to time switching in, you don't need to switch and then block. Barret is pretty much the same. I go through this very quickly because he is unchanged from the first game. And frankly, that's not a bad thing because it just works. The one thing that is different, I think, is that you can continuously keep shooting. Whereas I think in the first game, no, you could continuously keep shooting in the first game as well. Now, you can sort of abuse Barret's ability here on smaller enemies because that last shot of his will usually cause a knockdown. And I do that a couple times where I strategically position Barret so that as they come towards me, His projectiles are actually directional, so it doesn't go through enemies if you have another one locked on. So I purposefully position one enemy in between me and what I'm aiming at, and you can see there, they get hit by it, which is kind of a useful little tactic if one enemy is running at you, and you don't want to, like, break up your flow. You can absolutely do that. Also, Maximum Fury will auto-change targets once it's done shooting, which I don't remember if it did that in the first game. I think it did, but I can't remember. But yeah, Barret, pretty much unchanged from the first game. But that's probably totally fine because Barret has always been pretty amazing in the first game anyway. Tifa is mostly unchanged as well. She does feel a little bit better to use, and they have slightly changed certain things. Also, the music is fucking awesome. Just like groove into this a little bit. But her attacks are pretty fast. She does have some new dodging attack mechanics because if you dodge, she does a wider sweeping hit. Also, she's able to hit more than one enemy at once if they are close together when she's attacking. So that makes it a little bit easier. Activating Unbridled Strength also does a little bit of an area attack. So if there are enemies near you when you use it, they will get juggled up into the air for a brief moment. I don't think it works on every enemy, but it does work on... it does work on smaller enemies, you know, the more common ones. So this is just teaching us about Unbridled Strength. It's good for raising stagger, but she's good for raising stagger in general. All of her attacks seem to be entirely focused on stagger building, and it kind of makes her amazing. And I wonder if that's because that's what the developers had noticed people were using Tifa for, because there was sort of like a meta where like, oh yeah, Tifa's really good for raising stagger and getting the staggering enemies thing in the original game. I don't know if they had designed her in the original game with that in mind, but it definitely has morphed into that. And they have leaned into what a lot of players were doing in the first game because it just feels natural. So yeah, her abilities will increase stagger considerably. I don't know why I sit on this for so long, but she's pretty good at doing this. I do try to time some blocks, and I'm pretty bad at them. She does have a block system. Well, every character does, where if you block at the right time now, you will knock back an enemy and receive no damage. You can block normally as well, and it does half damage. So still useful to block even if you're not good at the timing. But if you are good at the timing, then it ends up being pretty good. But as you see here, I use Rise and Fall and Omni Strike, and the stagger goes up and it kills it really quickly. So those have considerably increased in their ability to stagger. They really are trying to push staggering and all that for every single enemy, whereas it felt like in the first game, there were certain enemies that just had so little HP that it really didn't matter to exploit their weakness or to stagger. And now it kind of feels like doing that will make it easier for every enemy. Like, even the orcs have a little bit more HP than you expect, even though they're really easy to juggle around and like really can't hit you. But just focusing on trying to stagger them will end the fight a lot quicker. Aerith is considerably changed. Before, her Tempest ability was on her triangle, and she has something completely different on triangle now. So now, her Tempest ability is set on holding square, which makes her considerably more powerful than before. Also, her base attacks, if the enemies are close together, can hit both of the enemies. I believe that also you do more damage if you have the Fleeting Familiar available as part of Tempest. So she can be extremely powerful if you use her correctly. And that has really changed a lot. She did not used to operate like this in the original game. I am curious if there are staves of hers that they have put into the game that are more physical attack based, because she did have some of those in the original game, and she did have the bladed staff in the first remake game. So it's not like they didn't have them. I do wonder if they have as much depth as her abilities can here. Here it's talking about the triangle, the new triangle ability, where she can warp to a ward that she's made. And this was sorely missing from the original game, because when you put down one of these wards, you pretty much had to stay in it and hope that, you know, if there was an ability that an enemy was using that would force you out of that area, like if the enemy used an area of effect attack and was too close, then you sort of got into this weird situation where it's like, okay, well, now I have to leave the ward, and that's that. And like, you don't want to reuse ATB to recast the ward. But now, when you cast a ward, you can just go to it. Also, that Sorcerer's Storm hits none of them because they were too far away. It did give me a better idea of how wide that range is, and now I almost never use it because that really involves being very close with Aerith, and that's kind of a bad idea. She does not have a lot of HP or defense. But yeah. So Aerith is very different, changed for the better. Definitely. It feels a lot better to use her. Red 13. Red 13 is interesting. Very much leaning into the new blocking mechanics with Red 13, because that is entirely what he's based around. So basically, he has regular attacks. You can do a wide attack that will attack multiple enemies by holding square. There's also some countering stuff built in with Red, just like it is with Cloud. So I try to do some blocks here, and I'm like really bad with it. I'm just, the timing's not great. But if you block, even if it is not a perfect block, his vengeance meter will go up. The more his vengeance meter goes up, oh yeah, there I realized I could change it from being like a right side thing to a full screen. Even if it's not a perfect block, his vengeance meter will go up. Also, it's really easy to juggle with Red. And as his vengeance meter goes up, then you can use it to deal much harder attacks when you activate it, and also use Siphon Fang. And Siphon Fang will heal him. I think it's about to explain that, actually. Yeah, when you enter Vengeance mode, you can use Siphon Fang, and all of your attacks do more damage, and he's faster in general. So the better you are at perfect blocking with Red, the more powerful he's going to be. If you're not great at perfect blocking, it is one of those things where it's like, maybe you shouldn't use Red until you get a little bit better with it, because he is a little bit weaker than the other physical characters, and he's about delivering punishment back. And yeah, so like being able to counter and getting that vengeance mode up so that any damage you did take while trying to block, you get back with Siphon Fang is incredibly important with Red. If you're not good at building that vengeance mode up, though, it's kind of a moot point in terms of how much damage you end up doing. So there's a synergy training here. We're going to go into that. I don't know why I back out of it, because I'm dumb, apparently. The synergy training is kind of interesting. And I think because I go through all of this in the demo, I may not necessarily show it when I do a Let's Play for the game, because the training is the exact same. I've already gone through these modules in the regular game, and it is 100% the exact same. So, yeah, while guarding, you can do synergy skills. Synergy abilities are ones that use ATB. Now, some of the synergy skills are just amazing. Like, for instance, Cloud has two different abilities that he can do. He can either dodge and use Blade Beam, or if Barrett's in the party, he will just ricochet bullets off of his freaking sword, which is amazing. And I just spam the hell out of it because it is just awesome. It gives Cloud a very usable long-range ability. I don't know if it necessarily does more damage than just Barrett attacking normally, but it is still interesting. So the ATB ones do a ton of damage, and yes, they also give unique buffs that really change depending on which one you're using. Stagger duration being increased, unlimited MP is interesting. Limit break levels going up is interesting, though some of them are a little confusing. Like for instance, the unlimited MP one that I've seen, it comes from Tifa and not Aerith, and so it doesn't seem like it comes from the character that you expect it to. So I used counter fire there, which is kind of an interesting one. And I think about like, oh right, these are regular alpha dunks, I should probably do an assess. And then I was like, nah, the demo doesn't care about assessing these enemies, because regular alpha dunks don't exist in the overworld in Junon, even in the demo. So there's all that, and then I go back through and do the Beginner's Hall, which I really should have done first, because the Beginner's Hall is just telling you, hey, you press square to attack, you press circle to dodge, all those things. So it's a really, really simple and easy one. I thought that it might be something a little bit more... what's the word? I thought that it might be something a little bit more advanced, but it's really not. Which makes sense why it's first in the list. So we just, you know, destroy these orcs. They never stood a chance whatsoever. A little mean, maybe. But, you know. You do what you do. So we've got some flying enemies here. You can lock onto targets and attack them. That's why it's Barret and Cloud, because it's like, oh, they're flying enemies, you should use Barret. And I just ignore that completely. I do think that I try holding square here sometimes, and it just doesn't really work in like bringing Cloud up to the air. And then I'm like, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm just gonna use Bullet Batter because it's amazing. I do find it hilarious that Bullet Batter is just ricocheting bullets off of Cloud's sword. What an amazing synergy skill to have. Synergy skills, yes, that's what they're called. Synergy skills are the R ones, synergy abilities are the ATB ones. And I can't believe that I forgot that. It's entertaining to use just in general. So they're trying to teach you about staggering here. And I realize, oh, Cloud actually has a long-range attack in there that I didn't realize until that moment. And so we use Cloud's long-range attack quite a bit more later on. So now we're done with all the training ones. Again, I'm just going to leave that in this demo because they're the exact same. So episode 4 will have those. When I do an actual Let's Play, I will not go through these again. So now we're going to go through the Junon Intel. It's the region. You just get to choose your characters that you want to use and go through a fight with the enemies of that region. So I just go with the Cloud, Tifa, Barret, because I haven't really been using Tifa all that much and I didn't know what to expect. And then it's just the enemies that you've already fought in the region, which end up being orcs and I think the flying guys and maybe alpha dunks at the end. Here I am just waiting for them to attack me, and then I was like, well, this is dumb. I'm just going to go on the offensive. Sometimes you just gotta, you know, play. Although I have noticed if you sit there and guard, the enemy does just sort of not react. It will not be dumb enough to just throw itself at you all the time, which is probably a better thing, because it makes it a little bit more natural feeling, I guess. I don't know if natural is the right word for it. So here's the Velociraptors that we had seen. Bullet Batter, again, is astoundingly good at raising stagger of these flying enemies. And I try to like fight them differently, and I very quickly realized that, yeah, no, Bullet Batter is just the better way to go. But our AI kills them fairly quickly. And then is it Alpha Dunks last? No, it can't be, because Alpha Dunks aren't part of the region. Ah, that's right. We're reintroduced to the Screamer, which actually is part of the Junon region, funny enough. The Grasslands Wolf is not. But the Screamer did appear in the Nibelheim region in the first half of the demo. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see, that one of the previous demo enemies makes a reappearance. Funny enough, the Screamer does appear both in Nibelheim and in the Junon region, or technically the Mithril Mine region, as two variants. So I guess they sort of condensed it into one enemy, I think. I don't know for sure if that's the case, or if there are actual variants for him. Maybe they'll have a variant in Nibelheim later in the actual game. I don't know. I haven't gotten there. So then we're going through the second half of the intel, which introduces the Ignalisk and the Velociwings. Ignalisks are not dangerous whatsoever. They're just kind of fodder. I truly don't understand why they like have those enemies here. They don't seem to serve much of a purpose other than being a target. Most enemies have some sort of gimmick to them. As me trying to do power cleave and totally missing, and then realizing, wow, that is not as useful of an ability. Compared to, like, you know, the bullet one, which is infinitely spammable and really great. Also, the music's freaking amazing. And we got two of these guys, which isn't that hard. We've already fought their upgraded variants, two of them at a time, so not an issue. Fairly easy to defeat. Especially if you do Cloud's attacks. I never realized how strong Cloud's dodge blade beams are. I try to get a power cleave in, but they really don't come towards you at all, so it's kind of useless. I just go back to bullet. Because it raises the stagger gauge so quickly. It is quite astounding how much it raises the stagger gauge.
Let's go. Come on.
I think I hit it a little bit there, but it was like at the tail end, so it didn't get the full brunt of the damage. There's not much to say about these enemies. They're just sort of normal. And then what's round 3? I don't even remember now. It was that, like, I don't know. Oh, right, a zoo. And again, some enemies that were from the Nibelheim region, because the brain guys are from the Nibelheim region. The zoo is interesting because I don't think that's from this region at all. I believe that is from the Mount Coral region. So that will probably show up there unless they decide to put it into Junon later. I don't know. Don't know what like the entirety of their enemy decisions are. So not too hard. The twin brains are a little bit more of a pressing issue because they can actually stun your characters. and that can be fairly dangerous, so we want to avoid stunning as much as possible, because that happens when they use Screech, and you just sort of sit there, and then they'll jump onto your character and try to life siphon them, so you want to get them killed as quickly as possible if that happens. Of course, they are pressured right after they use Screech, so if you avoid it, you can do a ton of damage to them. And that's why that one died so quickly. You stagger it, and then just beat it to death. I like how I don't use any abilities. I just attack and attack and attack and attack and attack.
Let's go.
And there we go. That's the Junon region intel complete. So after the region intel, we move on to the battle intel, and this is basically going to make us face two of the unique enemies together. So Silver Chimera and the Alpha Dunk variant here. These aren't too hard, and frankly, I was a little worried when I was starting these that it would impose combat like restrictions, like you need to do it in a time limit, or you need to do it, you know, you need to stagger both enemies, or don't let them do it, like, you know, combining those challenges. But it's just a fight. And frankly, they're not that difficult. After you have beaten them and completed all the combat challenges for each enemy, it becomes a lot easier to gauge how to defeat all of them. And, you know, you pick whichever one you think is your harder enemy, I would say. None of them are particularly that difficult, but like you pick the harder one that for you to face and just go to town on it, and then you switch to the other, and that's pretty much it. I really wish there was more to say about it, but we've already seen these enemies and we've already seen the fights. Now, if it had introduced extra, you know, issues to deal with here, it would have been a little bit more difficult. And I almost wonder if they had done that at first and realized, oh, that's actually kind of annoying to deal with. Let's not do that to the players. And then like backed off on it. I know personally, I think that there was maybe a change eventually. Also, I'm realizing now that I really kind of do this without healing too, which is astounding. How have Barrett and Tifa not gotten like totally wrecked fighting the silver? I don't know, actually. That's a little weird. Oh, okay. I do use chakra on myself. I started using that tactic again, which does work just as well as it did in the first game. Fully leveled chakra will, you know, be very, very useful. Getting them together into one spot and using Cloud's Punisher mode, especially getting them, like if you get one of the good blocks on, it does this thing where like it pushes back most enemies around, even if they're not the ones that attacked you at first. So it becomes a really useful tool. I don't remember what I was doing here. Oh, I'm hearing. Okay. I'm gonna just go in for the kill. You know, the other thing that really surprises me is for how like detailed looking this combat simulator area looks, it runs so perfectly smooth. And I wonder if they really optimized the hell out of it so that they could have really interesting, like, big fights without needing to resort to using, like, without needing to drop down any settings or looks or anything like that. Because it looks so good. Like, they did a great job. There we go. All beaten for this one. I honestly, I think that the other one is even easier because you don't need to worry about the healing wind, like needing to stop it before it happens. So White Squall, fairly easy. What's funny is that there is a cut here, and that's because for Conqueror of the Skies, I thought that this was the summon fight that exists. So I actually left this menu, went in and did some like changes to my setup because I thought this was the Phoenix fight, and then I was like, oh, never mind. This is the Zoo variant and the Whimsalette. And then I was like, oh, well, I'm not really prepped for this fight because of what I have equipped. But it turns out I really didn't need to be, because I didn't have too much issue, frankly, going through this. I know it looks like I'm getting my ass handed to me at the very beginning of the fight, but they don't do a ton of damage. It's just a lot of hits that, like, it's just a lot of hits that, what's the word? I can't even think. A lot of like I get hit a bunch, but they're not doing a ton of damage, so it's mostly annoyance hits. But I think if you've been fighting these enemies normally and you've gotten everything done, like you're not gonna have all that much issue dealing with these guys, unless you're terrible at the game like I am. But I don't know, I kind of did this mindlessly. I was just like, yeah, this is what I need to do to beat them. Oh, I got knocked out of Firebolt Blade there. I think in a second I'm just like, oh right, yeah, I have Aerith and I should probably use some spells because I have Blizzara on her, and I'm like, oh right, yeah, I just want to kill that thing. Somehow I didn't stagger him. Somehow, I don't know if Blizzara actually like happened. This is the death of the Whimsalette, I believe. There we go. And now we just have the bird to deal with, which isn't that difficult. Especially when it doesn't really attack you. It just kind of focuses on Cloud here and somehow gets staggered, and then I'm like, okay, well, that's it. Time to kill it. Then I realized I healed it by hitting it with the fire ability, and I was like, oh. Or the lightning ability, maybe? I don't know. Partners in Pain does so much damage. I was honestly surprised it didn't kill it outright, but it brought it down really low. There we go. Defeated. Okay. So, the next fight is really the hardest fight in the entirety of the demo. And frankly, I don't quite understand how you're supposed to do it. I am just not good enough. Maybe if you grind it out a couple of levels or something. But like, the Phoenix is tough. Now, it does mention something interesting here, that you're able to reduce the difficulty of the battles by completing certain world objectives. And I do think that that is the intended route to defeat any of these. Facing it at full might, which is what I try at first, and there are a ton of failed fights that I have footage of. Facing it at full might is akin to fighting it in hard mode on top of it being an extra challenge. So you cannot use items. I don't realize that at first, and I think I'm doing okay during the fight until somebody goes unconscious, and then I'm like, oh, I can't use a Phoenix down. And that really is kind of the death knell at that point. I am aware of some of the tactics at this point, but not all of them. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I know that when it does Birth of Creation or the life thing, you have to kill the enemies that it summons in order to defeat in order to like harm it. So as you're attacking these enemies, it will create others. It'll create 3 enemies from those little life things, and you have to kill the enemies in order to secure a victory. I do really, really terribly at the beginning here. A lot of the enemies that the Phoenix summons are actually really resistant to physical damage. And so one of the things that you can do, I'm realizing I got really lucky with that Grand Horn there, because it typically blocks most of the attacks, but I guess as Barret, you're far enough away that it has to go towards you in order to actually try and attack you. And like the bomb, for instance, I have such a hard time with because it's just not getting hurt. But I guess Barret is the key to beating those sometimes. The other thing you can do is use Cloud's long-range ability, which does defeat them. So after you defeat the 3 enemies that it summons, it no longer has those little floating orbs, and it is vulnerable. It is pressured. So you can now attack it with a whole bunch of different stuff to bring up its stagger gauge. I just realized that in hard mode, Barret has like ammo or something? I wasn't super paying attention, but like there is an ammo counter on the tactical mode menu, and I'd never seen that while playing. And then of course once it's staggered, then you attack it, do as much damage as you possibly can. Unfortunately, it went out of stagger right as I used Partners in Pain, so I didn't get any of that damage. None of that really counted. It takes so very little damage. It takes 1 damage when it has the Life of Creation thing going. And then I also have a big issue with the Archdragon because I'm just not sure how to deal with it at first. And it does a ton of damage with its attacks. Like, it will ruin you. Rama is really useful as a summon in this fight just because it's another source of damage. He will attack the enemies slowly over the course of the battle, and that does help out a little bit. It's not, like, insane. And that's the moment where I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just use an item after it uses Judgment Bolt, of course. It's also a decent thing. Like, if one of your people goes down, you can use Judgment Bolt, and that's useful. So that took out the Archdragon for us. There is a much easier way to kill the Archdragon, which I didn't realize at first. The Firebolt Blade ability that Cloud has will nearly one-shot it, and then you can just switch to another thing. I need to like pay attention and see what happens when his ammo goes all the way down. Oh, I used bonus round and actually gave myself more ammo. I think that's what happened there. So I just like inadvertently did it. Aerith is getting her ass beat because they're just focusing on her. And I realize, oh, the ogre's probably weaker against magic attacks, so I switched to Aerith. And I think that actually does a good bit. I got excited because she had her limit break up, but realized, oh, her limit break is that. And this is the moment where I was like, oh, I can't revive Cloud. And I realized, oh, I might be screwed in this fight. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe Radiant Ward will help, and if I try to get off a heal. And then Aerith goes down, I think, before she can even use her limit break. Or no, she gets like... Oh no, she's using her limit break right there. Okay. She was invincible for a little bit. This ogre has a ton of HP. I don't actually remember what the thing is to deal with the ogre. I get the Phoenix down into pressured. However, there is an issue with it being, with its health being where it is. Here I'm like deciding, do I try to stagger it before I do that? And I don't realize something. once you get the Phoenix down to half health, regardless of whether it's staggered or not, it will then go into Rebirth Flame mode. And you have a very, very short, like literally half a second to stagger it, or else it does this attack. And this attack does a massive amount of damage to your party. After which, it also summons more enemies. It will never go into the Birth of Creation mode again, so you can sort of just focus on it. That's probably the way to go, because, you know, it's the enemy and you want to try and kill it. Here I'm like, okay, well, it's staggered. I gotta do as much damage as I can, right? So I do Maximum Fury. And then I'm like, oh, I don't have any ATB as Aerith. Over there, Barrett's getting like the shit kicked out of him. And I just didn't do enough damage to the Phoenix to really kill it. It gets out of stagger, and I realize I'm gonna have to go through an entire thing. It also has those area of effect moves that it didn't use the first time around. And then at this point, I'm like, okay, well, it's using attacks that will follow me now, and it gets very aggressive in the second half of the fight, but there's really nothing I can do about it at this point. I try to keep Barrett alive as much as I can, but I kind of already know it's like, oh, I'm screwed. Especially because those explosive things that get used are like impossible to dodge. I don't know why I tried so hard at the end here. Maybe it was like, I'm so close. Look at its HP. And it would have been nice to just like one-shot it. I remember the ward's still there, and I'm like, oh, well, I can get some spells off and, you know, be safe. But that also involves getting in, and Barrett just gets knocked out of the way, even though he's supposed to be invincible while casting spells in this circle. But unfortunately, his HP is just, or his MP is just magic, rather. It's just not high enough to really heal that much of his HP. And he just gets tossed. And I'm just like, well, I mean, I'm kind of screwed here. My one last arrow. But those things that the bomb throws out are just impossible. And I'm pretty sure if you were to kill those enemies, it would then spawn the Arch Dragon, the other thing, all that, and you know. So after a ton of fights, I decided, you know what, the intended way to do this is to lower the power. And it even says that because you can do World Intel to lower the power. There's no penalty for doing this. You don't get a weaker version of Phoenix. You don't get anything else. It's just like, there's not even an achievement tied to beating that at full power. So there's no real reason to. So even one pip down is already astoundingly easier. There's a couple of new techniques I show off, like the fact that if you dodge and use Blade Beam, both the Flan and the Bomb get really, really damaged by this. Oh my god, that flame does not stop coming for me. The Flan's gone, so I'm waiting for the next enemy at this point to spawn. And that should be the Bomb. Same thing, the Blade Beams on the Bomb do really, really good job at pressuring it. And then you can stagger it like almost immediately afterwards. Don't accidentally, you know, hit that thing because it's really annoying. And when those two are next to each other, it's almost impossible to like do damage to the other one. The Grand Horn, as long as it's not blocking, you can get in some good damage, so get some distance, and you can see it goes down pretty easily. Also, while it's doing its earthquake attack, it's a lot easier to attack. You can get behind it and attack it, but that's a little tough because it seems to pivot a little easily. Now, put on the pressure, attack as much as possible, use your stagger abilities to increase stagger. Now, if you're it can unfortunately start its next phase a little early, so if you don't get it staggered this first time around, you can actually get sort of stuck into another loop, which is unfortunate. And I think that maybe is what happens here. No, it does Crimson Radiance, and I'm like, oh, it's stupid, like, attack everything around me thing. I don't understand how that last part hit me. Yeah, so when it does Flame of Life, I was like, oh no, I have to go through the whole thing with the Archdragon and everything, but at least it lets me talk about the strategy here. So these guys, literally a Firebolt Blade, near instant kill on the Archdragon. So it's already down. It knocks it down to the ground as well, and then from there it's really easy to kill it. Same thing with the second enemy that it's gonna create, the Fleetwing. A Fleetwing is not that difficult of an enemy anyway, but if you use Firebolt Blade, it will knock it to the ground and kill it fairly easily. Actually, I think I do it. Do I? Oh no, I just got off a really good timed reaction hit with the Punisher mode, which also nearly kills it. The Ogre, I think, takes me a second, because even with one difficulty down, he just sort of soaks up a lot of damage. Because he's just a big boy. But I think Punisher mode does make short work of him. I should have really guarded against that, because it would have done good. Yeah, I tried to do the block there, and I got hit by the Phoenix. Long range attacks like Bullet Blade do phenomenal against it. And then once it's pressured, go in and get it staggered. And if you could get it staggered with full ATB, you can do some pretty decent damage against it. So here I am, I'm just everything that I possibly can. And then, of course, Aerith, like always, has no, has absolutely no ATB set. I do Firebolt Blade like an idiot here. And the fire portion of it does heal the Phoenix, unfortunately. So now it's down below half health. It is going to use its big attack.
Duty call.
I do summon Rama just for some extra damage, because why not? It does help. Here's its Rebirth Flame. So here's like the 2 seconds you have to do something. Impossible. I do not understand what you're supposed to do there. Like, are you supposed to cast Blizzara, or I don't know. If there's some way to stop Rebirth Flame, I'd be very interested to know. Because it can do it outside of it being pressured. And if it does it outside of being pressured, I don't quite understand how to stop it. Now it does create all these enemies again. Again, you don't really have to focus on them, and I choose not to here. Just because it's a lot easier to take some distance and build up its stagger. Partners in Pain, phenomenal ability, by the way. Just does so much damage. Oh, I somehow killed the bomb as part of Partners. I don't think I noticed that when I was fighting it. I was just like, oh, and this is the silliest way to kill it. I find that hilarious that it just gets wrecked by the tiny little zap from Rama. But anyway, yeah, one damage or one difficulty down, and the Phoenix is infinitely more doable as a boss.
That was a masterful victory over Phoenix. The flames it conjured were so captivating. I could hardly look away. With an immortal ally like that at your side, you've nothing to fear. Not even death.
So now you can equip it. I choose not to. just because the enemy that's coming up actually, like, there's basically one more fight in this demo, and the enemy coming up is
I wish you all
weak
the
against
best.
lightning, so Rama is actually better to have for that boss fight. It's a little unfortunate that, like, there's not something that gets a little easier with Phoenix, because I would totally use it. I should have maybe equipped it on one of my party members just to try it out, but I just didn't. Oh well. Get on the Chocobo here. See the cool new armor that we've got equipped for it. I'm very happy about that. I very much like the Chocobo customizations, and I think that is one of the smartest things that they could have added just as a little extra something. I almost wish that you had character customization as well, because that would have been a nice little extra thing to add. Just like the ability to, like, yeah, let's change Cloud's outfit. And maybe you can. I know that, like, there are other outfits in the game, because there is, you know, there's a point where you can put on, like, swimsuits and stuff, because people are drooling all over, of course, the girls' designs with that. But I don't know if you, I think it's just for that one area, and you can't actually change your outfit all the time.
So all of this is Junon?
Everything above us. Below is under Junon.
Little more than an impoverished fishing village.
Vegas. Shinra's always gotta have someone stuck on. It's their friggin' MO.
Something that I'm appreciating is that I play this game with surround sound on, and it must just have a second audio mix running at all times, because that's what it actually records. Like, it records a stereo track, and it is nicely mixed still. You can hear all the characters. It's not like any of them just disappear. Oh yeah, it's just fun to throw stuff around, of course. You can't break them. They're not like boxes, but they are just floaty, fun barrels that you could toss around. And then I realize once I'm getting to this point, like, oh, this is like the way forward. That's probably the end and the point of no return. It is beautiful with the water and the lighting and the boats, and, like, just astoundingly good looking. So there's a cut here because I had decided to go back and just check and see if I had missed anything else, but I didn't. So moving onward, there's a couple of items up here leading into Junon. Not really much purpose for them at this point, but, you know, why not? And we meet a new character here that yeah, that's the I didn't get the ether and I didn't get the power risk cards. I'm guessing that there is one more, like, rabbit area that I didn't get, where there would be another ether onion, and the power risk cards I would have just needed to
One moment.
fight more enemies. But yeah, new character.
Welcome to Under Junon, our sunless oasis. My name is Rhonda. I'm the mayor and sheriff around these parts.
What?
Avalanche, huh?
That depends on who's asking.
A woman who could turn you in. And be 100 grand richer for it.
Well, you know what they say. Can't take it with you.
And Aerith to boot, huh? That's another $500,000 on top.
$500,000?
Down here, though, we know when to turn a blind eye. Consider our lips sealed.
Sorry, but I call bullshit.
Well, I don't think you would if you knew even half of what my town's been through. You don't like it? Leave. But over there, there's a quiet little inn where everyone's welcome.
Now, they did a phenomenal job.
Behave yourself.
I like her. They did a phenomenal job of creating Junon into something a little bit more than what it was, or at least under Junon into something a little bit more than it was in the original game. it looks fantastic. Like, this is great.
We gotta go! Now! There's a monster attacking the boat!
And of course, Priscilla, this scene, as everyone knows, is pretty much identical to what happens when you visit Junon the first time. There is one thing that catches my eye as I'm running down, because I'm like, oh my god. They even have the giant fishbone statue thing from the original. And that's just awesome. It is awesome. I do get a little afraid of things like that. I am very curious how this game is going to handle the... Well, not this game, but I guess the sequel is going to handle the submarine section. Yeah. I don't know. Emerald Weapon is going to scare the shit out of me. I do a quick check on everything that I have equipped. Because I don't need fire and ice. I need lightning and wind for this next section. So I do a little bit of equipping. Just make sure I'm all set to go. Level boost because there's not multiple enemies. So I don't need magnify. And everybody else should be pretty much set. I think I just swap ice for, yeah, lightning here. I should have probably equipped her with Phoenix just to have an extra summon available and raise her stats, but, you know, I was dumb. So, anyway, moving on. And, we're gonna get a little cutscene. The dolphin is so goddamn cute.
Yuppie! Grab his fin and hold on tight!
Hey, we're coming!
Hey, Shinra's most wanted. Get rid of that thing.
Say what?
Barrett, focus.
Get its attention.
On it!
And so, boss fight time. This enemy in the original, like, they kept most of the things about it. And I actually appreciate it. It does fly around, interestingly enough. Which I guess is why I'm not really, like... I've never really been scared of this enemy, even though I'm terrified of sea monsters. I don't know why, but I think it's mostly because it flies. And that should be more terrifying, but it's not. I don't know why. So, it's really not bad, especially after fighting Phoenix. Kind of just like, I'm prepared. It does have these water cell things, which will put your characters into. And the only way to, like, you can destroy them with regular attacks, but it's much more effective if you use, what's it called? Magical attacks. I also didn't realize at first, I was like, oh, right. If someone gets grabbed, you should probably attack the tail. And actually, attacking the tail is a good way to cripple it and do a ton of damage. Here we have it pressured. I think I didn't cripple the tail, but I did something to it that I don't quite understand. And then I'm not sure of whether or not it is weak to arrow or lightning here, which is why I have Cloud use Arrowa, because I'm unsure.
Hang on.
And of course, it's really hard to get the characters to aim correctly with normal attacks. Thankfully, when you use your magic on the water cells, it doesn't hurt your party. Thankfully. Thundara, very useful against them, and I think this might stagger it. Yep. That it does. And we just go in for the kill, start attacking. And of course Thundara, because it is weak against it, uses many of her attacking stuff while it's down. And we get it to a halfway point. At which point it goes under the water and tries to take out some of our fighting position, and also makes this giant tornado, which does a ton of damage if you run into it, but also you come out of the freaking cutscene right next to the tornado, which is a little unfair. That really messed me up. It really messed Aerith up, rather, because it does so much damage. Rama is always a good idea. It is weak to lightning. So having this up just lets us deal with the enemy a lot quicker. Having Barret ready to go is also really good. These water twister things like sort of hurt you whenever you're in them and they follow you, so it's really hard to get out of them. I decide not to help Barret here because I'm an asshole. And Barret's still stuck in the water cell, so I'm like, oh, oops.
Hang back. Shit. Better off with magic.
Yep, it's just letting you know. Now, that does mean that when Aerith is attacking it, it doesn't do a comment, which means that Aerith's attack are all magic-based, which is kind of interesting. And I mean, it makes sense. I mean, she's literally throwing out, like, little magical bolts. But I don't think I ever noticed that. And here I finally do the smart thing, where I'm like, oh, it's attacking Barret, so I should probably attack the tail fin. And if you do that, you could cripple it, and it does make it sort of do this, upside down thing. At which point, it's a lot easier to get it up. It is pressured when you cripple the tail. It went back underneath, and it's going to do another twister in a second. Or Oceanic Tornado. The AI is actually smart enough to move away now at this point. Thankfully. It definitely is not in the original game. I feel like it would just stand there and get hit. And Judgment Bolt kicks off, and I'm pretty sure that is going to end the fight. What a beautiful way to end it. So poetic. Tons of damage. Oh no, it doesn't kill it. Oh, I got it staggered. Oh, so it was like just a second off, but a good Thundara will end it. I just make everybody go full blast. And that kills the enemy.
Oh, no, you don't.
An amazing dolphin kickoff for the final blow. And there we go. You can swim in the final game, so I imagine you just pick up right up in the water. There is one more sneak peek. I'm just going to let that play. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys when we start the real game.
step on our new journey. You coming?